The most dangerous moves on the global stage rarely make headlines. They unfold in the quiet hum of jet engines on isolated runways, far from the glare of cameras or the clamor of diplomatic statements. Imagine for a moment an ordinary night, the world asleep, yet somewhere a single unassuming flight takes off, its cargo unseen, its destination a secret. But this wasn't just any flight. This particular ascent triggered a cascade of alarms, not in the public sphere, but deep within the secure facilities of intelligence agencies, long before a single official word was uttered. It was a silent, massive transfer, moving with an unsettling quietness, yet carrying a weight that could shift geopolitical balances. This is the story of a secret transfer, a monumental logistical operation linking Venezuela and China, executed under the cloak of night and international intrigue. We're going to peel back the layers and discover why this specific movement of goods, seemingly a routine exchange between two sovereign nations, sent shivers down the spines of policymakers in Washington, D.C. What was truly at stake here? Why did 200 tons of undisclosed cargo, flown thousands of miles, ignite such immediate concern? The answer lies not just in what was moved, but in the audacious act of moving it, and the underlying power dynamics it exposed. In today's volatile world, where sanctions are wielded as a primary weapon and global rivalries intensify, the seemingly mundane act of logistics can become a potent force, capable of shifting power faster and more decisively than any diplomatic maneuver. This isn't merely about cargo, it's about a strategic bypass, a demonstration of capability that instantly changed calculations. In an era where the United States seeks to isolate regimes and manage the rise of competitors, a successful large-scale clandestine transfer directly challenges that established order. It's a stark reminder that control over global supply chains is not absolute, and that new pathways are constantly being forged, often out of necessity. Venezuela, under Nicolas Maduro's leadership, has found itself increasingly isolated on the world stage. Crippling sanctions imposed by the US and its allies have severely restricted its access to international financial markets and trade routes, pushing its economy to the brink. For a nation rich in natural resources, but starved of cash and key imports, the options are few and often desperate. Enter China, a global economic powerhouse with an insatiable demand for resources and a strategic long-term vision that often bypasses traditional Western alliances. Beijing's approach to international relations is frequently characterized by non-interference and pragmatic engagement, making it an attractive partner for nations facing Western pressure. This dynamic sets the stage for a relationship built on mutual, if sometimes opaque, benefit. Given Venezuela's deep economic woes and China's strategic interests, such a transfer might seem logical. Yet, under existing constraints, observers often deemed such a large-scale direct transfer practically impossible. That assumption, however, proved to be fundamentally flawed. For years, the conventional wisdom held that Venezuela's logistical capabilities were too compromised, its international air access too monitored, and the risks too high for such a brazen operation. The sheer volume, 200 tons, suggested a complex logistical feat requiring significant resources and a high degree of secrecy. Many believed that any attempt of this magnitude would be swiftly detected and potentially intercepted, or at the very least, publicly exposed and condemned. But those who held this belief fundamentally underestimated Venezuela's remaining leverage and its willingness to innovate under duress. The flight, it turned out, was not impossible. It was merely unexpected, a testament to a hidden resilience and a willingness to operate outside the established norms. The hidden mechanism behind this audacious move lies in understanding how sanctioned states, pushed to the periphery of the global financial and logistical systems, are forced to innovate. They don't simply abandon the idea of moving valuable assets. They adapt, creating parallel infrastructures and leveraging unconventional partners. When traditional shipping lanes are monitored and banking transactions are scrutinized, air logistics offer a unique blend of speed, secrecy, and directness. Unlike vast container ships that crawl across oceans, Vulnerable to port inspections and satellite tracking over long durations, a cargo plane can traverse continents in hours, minimizing exposure and maximizing payload security. This shift to air transport isn't just about speed. It fundamentally changes the enforcement dynamics for international sanctions. Ground-based and maritime inspections, while effective for bulk goods, become far more challenging when dealing with discrete, high-value air cargo. The sheer volume of global air traffic makes pinpointing a specific illicit flight incredibly difficult, especially when operating under the guise of legitimate routes or with carefully falsified manifests. Furthermore, the specialized nature of large cargo aircraft, requiring specific handling and airport infrastructure, means that only a handful of strategically chosen locations can facilitate such operations, making them harder to track, but also potentially easier to secure from prying eyes. This bypass mechanism weakens standard pressure tools, revealing a critical vulnerability in the current global surveillance architecture. It exposes how a determined actor with the right partners and resources can circumvent established controls, turning a blind eye to international norms and regulations. The world, it seems, is far from a perfectly transparent system. The real consequences of this secret flight are multifaceted and far-reaching. Strategically, China benefits immensely. Not only does it secure valuable resources or assets without the scrutiny of traditional markets, but it also solidifies its position as a reliable, non-judgmental partner for nations under Western pressure. This strengthens its geopolitical influence, creating a network of allies and dependencies that challenge the US-led global order. For Venezuela, it's a lifeline, a demonstration that despite isolation, pathways to external support and trade still exist, albeit through unconventional means. This act of defiance provides a psychological boost to the regime and offers a practical solution to its economic woes, even if temporary. On the other side of the ledger, those who lose are primarily the US and its allies. They lose visibility, control, and influence. The effectiveness of their sanctions regime is called into question, undermining a key foreign policy tool. The lack of transparency surrounding the cargo itself fuels speculation and uncertainty, creating a breeding ground for mistrust and escalating tensions. This single flight, therefore, isn't just an economic transaction. It's a strategic maneuver that directly challenges the US's ability to dictate global conduct. The reactions are already unfolding, albeit behind closed doors, as intelligence agencies scramble to understand the full implications and policymakers debate how to respond to this blatant circumvention. This incident, however, is not an isolated event, but rather a piece of a much larger global pattern of realignment. It signals a growing trend where nations, particularly those chafing under US hegemony, are actively seeking and forging alternative supply chains, financial systems, and political alliances. This isn't merely about one cargo flight. It's about a strategic logistics-based power play, a deliberate move to create a multipolar world where reliance on any single superpower is diminished. The flight serves as a potent signal, a clear message that the rules of the game are changing, and new avenues for international cooperation and defiance are being explored. This was not a one-off event born of desperation. It was a calculated move designed to test boundaries and assert autonomy. What most people miss in the immediate aftermath of such an event is the deeper narrative, the true significance beyond the apparent cargo. The panic in Washington wasn't merely about 200 tons of gold or even the potential for dual-use technology. It was about precedent. It was about the chilling realization that the carefully constructed web of sanctions, financial controls, and diplomatic isolation could be so elegantly and effectively bypassed. This flight wasn't just moving physical goods. It was moving the goalposts of international power dynamics. The true insight here reshapes the entire narrative. This wasn't an isolated smuggling operation. It was a demonstration of capability. It was a clear, undeniable signal that the global South, supported by emerging powers like China, can and will forge its own paths, irrespective of Western disapproval or sanctions. The quantity of the transfer, while significant, pales in comparison to the qualitative message it sent. It demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of vulnerabilities in the global enforcement architecture and a willingness to exploit them. This wasn't merely a desperate act by a beleaguered regime. It was a strategic chess move on the geopolitical board, executed with precision and daring. The implications ripple far beyond the immediate players. Other nations facing similar pressures, from Iran to North Korea, are undoubtedly observing this playbook with keen interest. They see a viable alternative to acquiescence, a blueprint for maintaining economic lifelines and political independence when conventional channels are closed. This single flight, therefore, isn't an anomaly. It's a harbinger of a new era of global trade and diplomatic maneuvering, one where traditional power structures are increasingly challenged by agile, interconnected networks operating outside the established norms. The question that lingers, and perhaps the most unsettling one for intelligence agencies and policymakers, is what future transfers could involve. If 200 tons could be moved with such discretion, what else might be traversing the skies or the seas, shielded from the watchful eyes of the global monitoring systems? Could it be critical components for advanced weaponry, sensitive data, or even personnel? The very act of this flight suggests that the existing monitoring systems, designed for a different era of international relations, may already be lagging significantly behind the innovative methods employed by states determined to circumvent them. The technology of surveillance, while advanced, often operates on predictable patterns and known choke points. But what happens when the patterns are deliberately broken, when the routes are improvised, and the cargo is disguised within a legitimate-looking supply chain? The answer is a growing blind spot, a creeping uncertainty about what truly moves across the global stage. This clandestine operation highlights an uncomfortable truth. For every layer of security and control implemented, there's an equal and opposite force developing new ways to bypass it. The strategic ending to this unfolding drama remains unwritten. We are left with the profound question of how many similar moves, perhaps smaller in scale, perhaps even more audacious in their implications, have already gone unnoticed. How many secret flights, how many hidden shipments have already reshaped the geopolitical landscape without a single headline or a whispered concern in the halls of power? This single flight to China was a rare glimpse behind the curtain, a momentary parting of the veil that revealed a hidden world of strategic logistics and defiance. But for every one we catch, how many more slip through, silently altering the course of history? One undetected payload at a time. The era of unchallenged global oversight, it seems, is rapidly drawing to a close.